Hello there. You've arrived at a quiet place, one without rush, one without demands, where thoughts can stretch like lazy cats in a sunbeam. Maybe you're lying down already, feeling the weight of blankets, holding you with the authority of gravity itself. Maybe you're sitting in a chair, and your shoulders are beginning to realize that no, they don't actually need to carry the weight of the cosmos tonight. Wherever you are, this is the kind of space where the universe can unfold at its own pace. It's not a classroom. It's not a lecture hall. No one here is grading your grasp of infinity. If you drift away halfway through, if your dreams hijack the lesson before we even get to the juicy part, well, that's not failure. That's success. After all, the universe is patient. Infinity doesn't mind if you take a nap while it explains itself. In fact, it probably prefers it. Infinity is like that friend who takes 3 hours to tell a story, but never cares if you check your phone halfway through, because the story will still be there when you tune back in. So let's lean into that patience. Tonight, our companion is infinity, and its alleged enemy, the edge. But is there really a contradiction there? Can a universe be infinite and still have an edge? Let's begin small. Picture yourself in a room. For walls, a ceiling, a floor. The walls are painted some vague color. Maybe white. Maybe that beige that landlord insists is neutral, but actually feels like despair diluted with milk. In this room, you walk straight ahead until you reach the wall. Congratulations, you found the edge. Simple. That's what an edge is, right? The point where the thing ends and the not thing begins. But the universe is no beige rental. Its edges, if they exist, might not be so kind as to present themselves like drywall. Now imagine the surface of a balloon. Not the whole balloon, just the skin. From your perspective, walking around on that rubbery surface, everything seems flat. You can pace in any direction, and the horizon stays steady, promising more space. But keep walking long enough, and you'll end up where you started. There's no edge, no cliff where the balloon's surface stops. It's finite. You can measure its surface area, but it's also edgeless. That's our first trick of geometry. Things can be limited without ending. Things can be whole without walls. Of course, when you picture this, you're probably imagining the balloon floating in your hand, maybe squeaking ominously as you rub it. And you're right to ask, is the universe like that balloon, sitting in some larger space, surrounded by what exactly? Cosmic living room air? A bigger universe? A meta-balloon? Cosmologists gently shake their heads here. They'll tell you, the universe doesn't need an outside. The balloon skin is an analogy, not an object in someone's cosmic closet. Space itself doesn't have to be inside anything. It is the container. That's unsettling if you're used to edges. But remember, unsettling is just another way of saying interesting with better lighting. Now maybe infinity still feels abstract, like the kind of word mathematicians toss around to frighten undergraduates. But here's something playful. Not all infinities are the same. The set of natural numbers is infinite. 1, 2, 3, onward without end. But between 1 and 2, there are infinitely many fractions. And between each of those, infinitely many decimals. There are more real numbers than natural numbers. Bigger infinities than small ones. Infinity comes in sizes like cosmic t-shirts. Small, medium, large, and whatever size you call a black hole's appetite. So when someone asks, is the universe infinite? The proper answer is, which infinity are you shopping for? If it's the infinite flat plane kind, then space just stretches and stretches without loop or wall. If it's the curved looping kind, then it's finite but without an edge. Either way, the universe refuses to hand you a neat, satisfying border. Now, I might be tempted to protest. But I like edges. They're comforting. They tell me where the city ends and the forest begins, where my desk stops and the abyss of my carpet starts. True, but edges are more cultural and cosmic. In the universe, edges don't come labeled. They're not neon-lit cliffs saying in a space, turn around. They're relationships between what we know and what we can't yet reach. The edge is less a place and more an agreement, like how far you'll let your cousin borrow money before you stop calling it a loan. Let's pull in a more modern metaphor. Imagine a video game world. Maybe you're wandering across a digital landscape, and eventually you hit that dreaded invisible wall. You push forward, but your character just awkwardly moonwalks against an unseen barrier. That's one kind of edge. The programmers simply didn't build anything beyond. The world ends not with a bang, but with a poor collision detection animation. But some games are sneakier. You walk east forever, and suddenly you're back where you started, the map looping behind the scenes. That's not an edge. That's a topology trick. And the universe may be playing by those rules. Meanwhile, we stare out at galaxies and notice something odd. They're running away. The farther they are, the faster they recede, as if the cosmos has just spotted the dinner bill and is sprinting for the exit. It's not that our galaxy is particularly repellent. It's that space itself is expanding. Every galaxy sees the same thing. Others fleeing outward. The balloon analogy comes back again here. As the balloon inflates, every point on the surface sees every other point recede. No center, no edge, just endless retreat. This raises another question. If everything is rushing away, is there a place where the retreat stops? An ultimate border? Here we meet the cosmic event horizon. Not a wall, not a fiery barrier, but a limit set by expansion itself. Light beyond a certain distance, about 16 billion light years, will never reach us, no matter how long we wait. It's not that there's nothing beyond. It's just that beyond is permanently disconnected, like an email that can never be delivered no matter how many times you hit resend. This horizon is an edge of sorts, but a slippery one. It's not out there in space. It's woven into the mathematics of expansion. And expansion isn't slowing. Dark energy, that mysterious accelerant of cosmic runaway, ensures that the more time passes, the more galaxies vanish from view. Not because they blink out, but because their light is forever outraced by the growth of space. Over eons, the night sky will thin, stars will dim, and one day only our local group of galaxies will remain visible. A lonely island in a vast dark sea. That's the slow comedy of cosmology. The bigger the universe gets, the less it we'll ever see. It's as if the cosmos is an introvert slowly ghosting us, one galaxy at a time. But back to edges. If none of the cosmological models, flat, open, or closed, require a wall, then perhaps the concept of the universe's edge is just human habit. We evolved in rooms, in forests, in cities with boundaries. Our brains crave endings the way toddlers crave sugar. But the universe doesn't cater to cravings. It simply expands, self-contained, complete, uninterested in providing a fence line for our peace of mind. Still, the suspicion lingers. Maybe space is flat and infinite. Maybe it's curved and finite. Maybe photons loop through the cosmos, arriving from multiple directions, whispering cosmic déjà vu. You imagine looking up and realizing that faint smudge in the sky is actually our own galaxy, seen from behind, billions of years ago. The universe pulling a cosmic photobomb on itself. It's a strange idea, but a testable one. And for now, the evidence leans toward flatness, though with margins too small to be smug about. So where does that leave us? Somewhere both inside and unbounded. Somewhere with horizons, but without walls. Somewhere that resists edges even as it constantly tempts us to look for them. If infinity feels slippery, that's because it is. If edges feel absent, that's because they might be. The cosmos doesn't owe us neat geometry. It owes us nothing at all, and yet it offers everything. Stars, galaxies, and the quiet, endless hum of expansion. And as you let your thoughts drift with that hum, maybe you'll notice that the idea of an edge is less important than the experience of being here, within it. Not outside, not apart, but included. You meet every atom in your pillow, every photon that traveled 13 billion years just to land in your eye tonight. We are all already inside the infinite. Infinity is a tricky guest at the dinner table of the mind. It doesn't sit down politely, eat its portion, and excuse itself. No, infinity shows up with a suitcase, moves into the guest room, and announces it has no plans to leave. And edges are the doorman we keep looking for. Someone to say, sorry, the party stops here. But the universe maddeningly doesn't provide one. Let's stretch out the thought with something familiar. Think about a city. Every city has an edge. Some line where the skyscrapers dwindle into suburbs. The suburbs dissolve into gas stations. And the gas stations fade into farmland. And even that farmland eventually bows out, handing the baton to forest, mountain, or desert. Edges are how we orient ourselves. They're useful. They keep us from wandering off into traffic or falling into ditches. But if the universe is a city, it's a bizarre one. No suburbs, no you are now leaving signs. Just neighborhoods that keep repeating, curving, folding back, like a cosmic labyrinth designed by an architect who was paid by the hour. And what about time? If space might lack edges, does time share the same rebellion? Consider your clock. It ticks with a comforting rhythm, breaking the infinite flow into bite-sized morsels. But between every tick, you could slice a smaller tick, and between those, smaller still. The subdivision never ends. Time, at least in theory, has the same infinite density as numbers. And yet when we ask what came before the Big Bang, cosmologists shrug and whisper that maybe the question doesn't make sense. Before might not exist, not as a hidden room waiting to be unlocked, but as a concept without relevance, like asking, what's north of the North Pole? The answer is a polite smile and a reminder that your compass doesn't work here. Still, our minds crave edges in time the way we crave edges in space. We like beginnings and endings. Stories start with once upon a time and end with happily ever after, even if the middle involves dragons with poor dental hygiene. But the universe may not play by narrative rules. Its beginning could be less an explosion and more a transition, a phase change like water freezing or boiling. One moment, undefined quantum froth. The next, space and time, stretching themselves like cats waking from an eternal nap. If you're picturing a frothy quantum stew, good, hold that image. Now add some humor. Imagine the cosmos as a giant pot of soup, bubbling with possibilities, each bubble a potential universe. Somewhere in the most absurdly large kitchen imaginable, reality was served. Did the soup have a recipe? Who knows? But here we are, spoonfuls of stardust, trying to figure out whether the broth has an edge. Let's pivot to geometry again. Draw a circle on paper. You can trace its circumference forever. And though the distance is finite, you'll never find a corner where the line says, this is the end. Circles have no edges. They're smooth, continuous, self-contained. Now, zoom out. The universe might be a three-dimensional version of that idea. A closed surface without boundaries, not sitting in something else, but complete as it is. If you tried to march across space in a straight line, you could in theory return to where you started. Though by the time you did, stars would have burned out, galaxies dispersed, and your sneakers would be very, very worn. Of course, we can't test that return trip. The loop, if it exists, takes longer than the universe's age. So we're left with models, equations, and the occasional raised eyebrow at our own audacity. The balloon analogy, again, is helpful but dangerous. People ask, what's the balloon expanding into? And the answer is nothing, or rather, it's not expanding into anything. It's expanding itself. The balloon surface defines its own space. It doesn't need a cosmic shelf to sit on. That's hard to swallow. But reality often is. Think of it like this. Asking what the universe is expanding into is like asking what your reflection is standing on when you look at a mirror. It's a category error, charming but misplaced. Let's turn toward the observable. Right now, we can see out about 46 billion light years in every direction. That's not the age of the universe, mind you. That's how far light has traveled, stretched by expansion, delivering postcards from ancient galaxies. Beyond that horizon, things still exist. We just can't receive their mail. Imagine trying to keep in touch with a friend who moved so far away that even carrier pigeons gave up mid-flight. That's the cosmic horizon, not an end, just a silent inbox. The real comedy here is that while the universe expands, light tries desperately to play catch-up. It races across space, but the finish line keeps pulling farther away. One day, most galaxies will slip permanently out of view. The sky will darken. Astronomers of the far future may look upward and conclude they live in a lonely, static cosmos, unaware that we once saw hundreds of billions of galaxies before the lights went out. It's not the universe being cruel. It's just following the rules of expansion, like a treadmill that accelerates the harder you run. Now, infinity is not just about size. It's about structure. Think of numbers again. Between 0 and 1, infinite decimals exist. That means, statistically speaking, no matter how rare an event might be, given infinite space, it will occur. Somewhere a galaxy forms that looks almost identical to ours. Somewhere else, a planet spins with creatures remarkably like you listening to a similar narration. Not clones, not destiny. Just probability playing with an endless deck of cards. Infinity is not mystical, it's mathematical. It takes what seems impossible and stamps it as inevitable, given enough room. This thought can be thrilling or horrifying, depending on how much coffee you've had, but it's also grounding. It means our existence isn't a cosmic fluke in isolation. It's part of a tapestry that stretches without end. The question shifts from, is there an edge, to what patterns repeat when there are no edges. Infinity ensures repetition. Edgelessness ensures continuity. Together, they weave a cosmos both familiar and utterly strange. Let's play with one more metaphor. Take a video loop. Maybe it's a cat chasing its tail on repeat. Watch long enough, and you forget where the loop began. Every cycle feels like both the start and the continuation. Now imagine the universe on such a loop. Photons traveling through curved space could in principle circle around and reappear, giving us duplicate images of galaxies. A hall of mirrors written in starlight. We haven't observed this yet, but the idea hangs in the air, tempting, waiting. Like the possibility of seeing your own cosmic selfie from billions of years ago. If this makes your head spin, good, let it. That spinning is the dizziness of perspective expanding. You don't need to master the math or memorize the models. It's enough to let the thought roll around like a marble in your mind, to feel the weight of infinity without trying to put it in a jar. And if you're dozing off now, drifting somewhere between galaxies of thought, that's perfect. Because infinity doesn't mind being half-heard. It's not offended. It has time. After all, it is time, or at least it includes all the time we can imagine. So here you are, cocooned in blankets, lying not just in your bed, but inside a universe that refuses to stop, refuses to edge, refuses to fit the categories we keep trying to impose. There's no cosmic fence, no boundary marker, no end of the world sign hammered into interstellar soil. There's just expansion, curvature, and the gentle reminder that edges are for furniture, not for existence itself. And maybe if you allow yourself a smile in the dark, you'll realize how absurdly comforting that is. To live in something endless, edgeless, quietly unfolding. To be part of a story without borders, where the only boundaries are the ones we invent, so we can sleep at night. Edges, as it turns out, are mostly an earthling obsession. We adore them. We draw maps with borders, fences and yards, frames around paintings. We cut bread into neat slices because apparently biting into an entire loaf is frowned upon at social gatherings. We thrive on edges because they reassure us that things have boundaries, manageable limits, and places where one thing ends and another begins. But the universe? The universe laughs politely at this obsession, like an old professor humoring a student who insists that the chalkboard must surely have a last square of blackness. Out there, among galaxies spinning and stars burning, edges aren't provided. At least, not in the sense we crave. Instead, we get horizons, slippery shifting, defined less by what space is, and more by what we can see. Take the cosmic horizon. At first glance, it sounds like the ultimate wall, a do not enter sign planted at the edge of reality. But in truth, it's not a physical location. It's a consequence of expansion. Light, our fastest messenger, is bound by rules. When space itself expands faster than light can cross it, distant galaxies slip permanently out of our reach, not because they stopped existing, but because the distance outpaces communication. It's like trying to shout across a canyon while someone widens the gap faster than sound could travel. Eventually, your words just get swallowed by the stretch. This is an edge, but not the kind you can stub your toe on. It's conceptual. It says less about where the universe ends, if it ends at all, and more about the speed at which its story unfolds. Now, if the observable universe is our stage, then the unobservable is the backstage area, immeasurable, unseen, but probably very cluttered. And that raises the real kicker. Is what we see typical or just one tiny corner of something vastly stranger? Because if infinity is in play, then no corner is privileged. Our patch of sky might be just one tile in an infinite mosaic, repeating patterns in ways we can't yet detect. And here's where infinity throws its curveball. It doesn't just say things go on forever. It says given enough room, everything that can happen will happen. Somewhere unimaginably far, there's a planet where someone just like you is lying in bed, listening to a voice just like mine, pondering whether infinity has edges. Not clones, not destiny, just math making good on its statistical promises. Infinity is the universe's way of saying, why not? Now let's swing back to geometry. You remember our balloon, an analogy cosmologists will out whenever someone asks about edges. On that balloon, galaxies are dots on the surface, receding as it inflates. There's no center on the surface, no outer edge either. But if you're stubborn, you'll point at the balloon floating in the room and insist, there. The balloon has an outside. And cosmologists will sigh again and remind you, the analogy stops at the surface. The universe doesn't need a room to sit in. Space doesn't expand into anything. It expands itself, the way a new paragraph creates more room on a page without pushing the book against your coffee mug. Let's make that stranger. Imagine asking, where is the universe? The answer, frustratingly, is wrong question. It's not an anything. It is everything. It's not a marble on a shelf, not a bubble in some larger foam, not a decoration pinned to a wall. It's the wall, the shelf, the foam, the marble, all rolled into the same concept. There's no outside, because outside only makes sense if there's something beyond, and space, by definition, has already claimed that role. Now, for a moment, imagine what happens if the universe is infinite and flat. You set off walking in a straight line. Forever there are galaxies, stars, clusters, filaments, voids. You never loop back. You never hit a wall. You simply continue. That's one picture. Endless expansion without closure. Another picture. The universe is finite but unbounded, like the balloon surface. Walk straight long enough, and you return to where you began, though it would take longer than the lifespan of all the stars combined. Both pictures eliminate edges. Both remove the cosmic fence we long for. If this feels slippery, that's because it is. Edges provide comfort. Their absence demands imagination. It's like discovering that the Monopoly board has no go-to-jail square. You're free to roam, but you also realize the game doesn't end the way you thought. Now let's sprinkle in a dash of humor. The heat death of the universe. It sounds ominous, but really it's just the cosmos running out of snacks. Stars burn out, galaxies drift apart, and matter thins until space is a quiet, cold whisper. Expansion doesn't stop. It just leaves everything increasingly isolated. This is one possible future. Another, more dramatic, is the Big Rip, where expansion accelerates so violently that galaxies, stars, planets, and eventually atoms themselves are torn apart. In that case, the universe doesn't just run out of snacks. It eats the table, the chairs, and the dining room before collapsing in indigestion. Both scenarios remind us the cosmos doesn't need an edge to end. It just needs time and physics playing the long game. And speaking of time, what an enigma it is. If space is unbounded, time may be equally mischievous. Between any two moments, there are infinitely more. Clocks pretend to chop time into slices, but those slices hide infinite subslices, forever divisible. That means the ticking in your room isn't time itself. It's just your brain's way of keeping the soup of existence organized enough so you know when to brush your teeth. Mathematicians take this further. They remind us that numbers like pi never end. You can measure a circle, but its defining number trails off into infinity. Digits unspooling like an endless ribbon. Time, space, geometry, all stitched from this same fabric of continuity. Infinity isn't exotic. It's built into the pencil lines of everyday math. Every time you draw a circle, you flirted with infinity. Every time you split a second into milliseconds, you've danced with it. And here's where physics pulls the rug. These infinities aren't decorations. They're part of the real scaffolding of the universe. Equations don't just approximately describe reality. They align with it frighteningly well. Gravity bends light exactly as predicted. Symmetries repeat across scales. It's as if the cosmos is less a chaotic storm and more a very precise thought, whispered in equations that mathematicians happen to overhear. If that feels poetic, good. Let it. Poetic doesn't mean untrue. Sometimes the sharpest truths come dressed in metaphor, because raw infinity doesn't fit neatly into human language. Infinity is patient. Edges are impatient. And the universe, ever the trickster, seems to prefer patience. So tonight, as you rest under blankets that weigh more comfortably than a galaxy ever could, you can let go of the idea of needing to find the edge. The cosmos isn't waiting with a fence post. It isn't holding a sign that says, "End of space, turn around." It simply is stretching, curving, expanding. Whether finite or infinite, It refuses the simplicity of walls. And maybe that refusal is the most comforting thing of all, because without edges, there is no outside to be excluded from. Without borders, there is no boundary where belonging stops. The room you're in, the stars outside, the galaxies beyond. All of it is included, not separate, not limited, inside, always inside. The further we wander into the subject, the more slippery it becomes, like trying to hold a bar of soap in the shower. Except the soap is made of starlight and the shower is 12 billion light years wide. The question of edges refuses to stay still. Every time you think you found one, physics leans in and whispers, "Not quite." Let's pause and remember what we mean by an edge in the first place. On Earth, an edge is wonderfully obvious. The edge of a table is where your coffee cup commits acrobatics and tests the strength of your carpet. The edge of a book is where the words stop and the silence of the margin begins. Even cliffs, as terrifying as they are, have the decency to announce themselves. A sudden end, followed by gravity reminding you why wings would have been useful. But in the universe, edges are coy. They masquerade as horizons, shifting lines drawn not by walls, but by time, expansion, and perspective. Take the cosmic event horizon again. It isn't a barricade in space, but a limit of influence. Beyond it, galaxies aren't cut off because they've ceased to exist. They're cut off because their light can never keep pace with expansion. The horizon is not a wall, it's a rule of the game. Imagine running on a treadmill while the treadmill itself is accelerating away from you. No matter how hard you sprint, the end of the track outpaces you. That's what photons deal with as they flee ancient galaxies. Except the treadmill is the fabric of reality, and the gym membership is mandatory. This brings us back to one of the stranger comforts of cosmology. Our perspective is never unique. Every galaxy has its own horizon. Every patch of space sees itself as the middle of expansion. If you were sipping tea in Andromeda, you'd watch the Milky Way drift away as though it, too, were the center of everything. No location is special. The universe doesn't play favorites. It hands out illusions of centrality like party favors, leaving each galaxy convinced it's hosting a show. Now, let's complicate the thought. Suppose the universe is finite yet unbounded. That's a balloon again. No walls, no ending, but also not infinite in volume. In such a universe, if you could travel forever in a straight line, you might eventually return to where you began, like a marathon runner cursed to find the starting line again and again. Only here, the marathon lasts longer than stars survive. You'd cross epochs, not finish lines, and the cosmic loop would feel indistinguishable from an endless road. But what if it's truly infinite? Then no loop ever closes. Galaxies extend forever. Filaments of matter stretch without end. Voids young wider than imagination. Infinity, in this sense, is less a number and more a personality trait. The refusal to stop. Of course, mathematicians remind us that infinity comes in flavors. There are the countable infinities, the natural numbers marching in neat order. Then the uncountable infinities, the real numbers flooding every gap. And then higher infinities, each larger than the last. A ladder that climbs into abstraction, so dizzying it makes your bed feel like the safest place in the cosmos. If space is infinite, which infinity is it? The polite one, or the unruly cousin who overstays every holiday visit? The practical truth is that we don't know. Observations tell us space appears flat on vast scales. Triangles drawn between galaxies obey Euclidean geometry. Light travels in straight lines, except where gravity warps it. Flatness suggests infinity. but flatness doesn't prove it. A universe can appear flat yet still fold into loops too large for us to detect. It's like standing in Kansas and insisting the earth must be flat because you can't see the curvature from the wheat fields. The truth hides in scales beyond our sight. Now let's zoom in, not literally but conceptually. Light, that diligent courier, has been traveling since the Big Bang. 13 plus billion years of motion, stretched by expansion into microwaves that now whisper across the sky as the cosmic microwave background. That glow is the oldest message we've received. Beyond it, the early universe was opaque, too dense for light to wander freely. So, in a sense, we already live surrounded by an edge. The edge of what light can tell us. Not a cosmic wall, but a fog of beginnings. A veil of heat hiding the moment before clarity. Beyond that veil, theories multiply. Some say time itself emerged there, like frost forming on a window pane. Others suggest there was no before, that asking for it is like demanding to see the number smaller than zero. And still others whisper about multiverses, endless bubbles of reality, each with its own physics. Our universe, just one soap bubble in a frothing infinity of cosmic dishwater. If true, then edges are even less meaningful. Every boundary dissolves into another, and the word universe becomes a local nickname, not a total definition. Humor helps when the ideas get this big. Think of the multiverse as an infinite stack of pancakes. Our universe is one flapjack, syrupy, and hot. And somewhere else there's another pancake with blueberries instead of chocolate chips. The stack never ends. But you, dear listener, are stuck on this pancake. You don't get to taste the others. You just get to speculate while eating the breakfast you were served. And what about endings? If there are no edges in space, might time itself still provide one? The heat death looms. Stars extinguished, galaxies separated, energy smeared into uniform cold. Or the Big Rip, expansion so violent that galaxies, stars, and atoms unravel. Or even a big crunch, if dark energy reverses and gravity pulls everything back inward, folding the cosmos into a final collapse. Each scenario provides closure without edges. None require walls. The universe doesn't fall off a cliff. It simply changes the script. The irony, of course, is that all these futures unfold over timescales so vast they make human history look like a sneeze in a hurricane. The Roman Empire, the Industrial Revolution, your favorite TV series, Cosmic Footnotes, already forgotten by stars that burned out before humanity learned to walk. Infinity has patience. We have alarm clocks. The mismatch is almost comical. And yet, despite the scale, here you are, a single human lying down, wrapped in blankets, asking questions about infinity. And that is extraordinary. You're not outside this conversation. You're inside it, part of the very universe whose edges you wonder about. Your atoms were forged in stars that died billions of years ago, scattered across space, swept into clouds, and gathered again into the body, now resting quietly. You're not separate from infinity. You're built from it. So if tonight your mind circles the question, can the universe be infinite and still have an edge? Let it circle. Let it drift. Let it wander like galaxies drifting apart. The answer, slippery and unsatisfying, is that edges aren't required. Infinity doesn't forbid them, but neither does it demand them. The universe, expansive and patient, simply goes on. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of lullaby the cosmos intended. Not a neat ending, but a horizon that forever recedes. There's something almost mischievous about the way infinity plays with our imagination. It whispers possibilities that sound absurd and yet remain stubbornly plausible. If space is infinite, then probability becomes a stage with no curtains. Given enough room, even the most unlikely events are not just possible, they're inevitable. Imagine rolling dice. On any given toss, the chance of rolling 12 sixes in a row is microscopic. But roll long enough, infinitely long, and those 12 sixes aren't just possible, they're guaranteed. Now replace dice with galaxies, with planets, with lives. Somewhere in an infinite cosmos, there's a world where rain falls upward, another where pizza is the foundation of the food pyramid, and yet another where someone just like you is nodding off to a narration almost identical to this one. Infinity is the ultimate stage magician. It doesn't need to invent new tricks. It just repeats them until everything happens. But let's not drift too far into cosmic whimsy. Infinity has a serious side too. It reminds us that scale matters. Our corner of the universe may look vast, hundreds of billions of galaxies, each with hundreds of billions of stars. But if infinity is truly in play, that number is laughably small. It's like bragging about how many grains of sand you've collected when the entire desert stretches endlessly beyond the horizon. Now about that horizon. The observable universe is often described as a sphere centered on us, 46 billion light years in every direction. It sounds as though we're special, like the center of a cosmic snow globe. But remember, every observer sees the same. A galaxy 10 billion light years away also sees itself as the center of a sphere, surrounded by everything it can observe. Each perspective overlaps, some slices of reality shared, others forever separated. There is no universal stage. There are only local views. Infinity doesn't crown a center. It spreads a crown everywhere. And yet we still want to ask, what lies beyond what we can see? This is where edges sneak back in, disguised as curiosity. But what lies beyond may not be a place we can ever reach. It might be causally disconnected, permanently outside our light cone. That sounds isolating, but it's actually democratic. Every galaxy, every star, every observer is wrapped in its own horizon. No one has access to the whole. The edge, such as it is, isn't a cliff. It's a limit drawn by the rules of expansion. Now let's try something playful. Imagine walking across a video game world where the developers designed the map to wrap around. Head east long enough, and you reappear on the west. To the player, it feels endless. To the programmer, it's a clever loop. The universe could be similar, finite in total volume, but without edges. That means you could, in principle, travel in one direction forever and eventually meet yourself coming the other way. Though by then you'd be several trillion years older, and your shoes would have worn down to theoretical concepts. Of course, evidence so far doesn't show such loops. Light doesn't repeat patterns across the sky the way it would if photons circled the universe. Still, the possibility lingers. The cosmos could be tricking us. Its loops, so vast they look flat from where we stand. It's the Kansas problem again. Just because you don't see the curve doesn't mean the globe is flat. Perspective is limited. Infinity is not. Now about endings, or rather, the absence of them. The heat-death scenario suggests no walls, no final explosion, just a long, slow fade. Galaxies drift beyond sight. Stars exhaust their fuel. Matter spreads thinner and thinner until the universe resembles a library where every book has been taken away, leaving only dust and silence. Infinity doesn't stop. It just becomes quieter, emptier, colder. Another possibility, the Big Rip, is more dramatic. Expansion accelerates so ferociously that galaxies tear apart, solar systems unravel, planets split, molecules shred. Even space itself stretches until nothing holds together. The universe doesn't stop with a whimper. It ends in a spectacular tantrum, flinging its toys so far and so fast that none remain. If edges ever existed, this would be their dramatic unveiling. But again, no walls, just disintegration. And then there's the big crunch, the romantics ending. If dark energy reverses, gravity could pull everything back together. Galaxies would collide, stars would merge, black holes would feast until, at last, the universe folded into itself, collapsing into a final point, a beginning and an end joined together. The cosmos closing the book it once opened. But whether that story will ever play out remains unknown. Right now, the evidence favors endless expansion, not collapse. Humor helps when you stare at such fates. Think of it this way. The universe is like a party guest. It might stay forever, nibbling snacks until nothing's left. It might storm out dramatically, smashing glasses on the way. Or it might quietly clean up after itself and leave the room as it found it. We don't get to pick. We just watch and wonder which mood it's in. Let's step sideways into time again. Between any two moments, another moment hides. Time is divisible without limit. No matter how small the slice, there's always a smaller one waiting. That means the ticking of clocks, the calendar pages flipping, are conveniences, not the thing itself. Time, like space, may be infinite in resolution, even if finite in extent. It's not a straight line we walk, but a fabric we're woven into. And just as space might loop, time could have shapes stranger than our intuition allows. There are models, for instance, where the Big Bang wasn't a beginning but a transition, a phase change like water freezing, where the laws we know emerge from something more fundamental. In those views, asking what came before is meaningless, not because of forbidden, but because before didn't exist yet. Time itself was waiting to be invented. You can't ask what happened before a clock existed. The very concept of before belongs to the clock. Now here's a comforting twist. Whether the universe is infinite or finite, edgeless or looping, it doesn't change your place inside it. You're not outside the story. You're written into the fabric. Every atom of your body has been part of stars, clouds, explosions, collapses. You're stitched into the continuity, edges or no edges. Infinity includes you. That's not philosophy, it's chemistry. So tonight, as you lie in the dark, you don't need to solve a riddle. You don't need to pin down infinity or hammer a fence around space. You only need to feel the weight of belonging. You're not at the edge. You're not near the outside. You're already inside. And no matter how far infinity stretches, it can't leave you out. The universe has no requirement for walls. It has no need for limits. And perhaps neither do you. There's a peculiar calm in realizing that the universe might not stop. That there may be no edge, no wall, no final gate at the end of the cosmic road. For most of our history, humans feared falling off the edge of the earth. Sailors imagined ships tipping into oblivion, swallowed by sea monsters lurking beyond the horizon. And then we learned the truth. The world loops back on itself. The sea doesn't end. It continues curving, wrapping, whole. Perhaps the universe is pulling the same trick, only on a scale too immense for us to sail across. Picture, again, the surface of the earth. You can walk in any direction and never find an edge. Plains roll into hills, hills rise into mountains, mountains fall into valleys, and valleys open into oceans. Yet the total surface area is finite. The earth is round but edgeless. The only cliffs you'll find are carved by geology, not by the planet itself. Now imagine that principle inflated into dimensions beyond 3. That's one way to think of the cosmos. not a box with sides, but a sphere of existence folding back upon itself, where the journey never ends, but also never requires an outside. And yet, the idea of an outside is stubborn. Our brains want to know what the balloon floats in, what container holds the container. If the universe expands, what is it expanding into? These questions cling like burrs on socks. But the answer, unsatisfying, liberating, and profoundly strange, is that the universe doesn't expand into anything. It simply expands. It defines its own space. Asking what it expands into is like asking what north of the North Pole looks like, or what happens when you subtract Tuesday from blue. The question dissolves in your hand. Let's take another step into infinity's mischief. Imagine you're painting a line. No matter how carefully you try, the line can always be divided into smaller pieces. You cut it in half, then again. There's always another midpoint waiting. The line contains infinite points, hidden within its finite length. Infinity hiding in plain sight. This is what mathematicians call a continuum, something finite in extent, but infinite in resolution. Space and time themselves may be built from such continua, which means infinity isn't out there. It's here in every step, every tick, every breath. Now, let's add humor before the math overwhelms us. If time is infinitely divisible, then technically you could spend eternity between brushing one tooth and brushing the next. You'd never finish the toothbrush routine. The only reason you don't is because your morning schedule disagrees with infinity's patience. In practice, we slice time into usable chunks. Seconds, minutes, hours. But deep down, infinity is lurking, grinning, knowing you'll never reach its bottom. This brings us back to the observable universe. Imagine a sphere centered on you, 46 billion light years in every direction. That's the distance light has managed to travel, stretched and slowed by expansion. It's the biggest window we have, the farthest light that has arrived at our eyes. But that window isn't an edge. Beyond it, the universe continues. Galaxies, stars, and structures exist out there, hidden not because they're gone, but because their light has yet to arrive, or never will. Our horizon is not a wall. It's just the limit of what can touch us. Think of it like listening to an orchestra. You hear the violins and cellos near the stage, but somewhere beyond the hall, a trumpet is playing in another room. The sound can't reach you. That doesn't mean the trumpet stopped. It just means you're not invited to its song. The universe plays its music beyond our hearing, and our horizon is simply where the sound fades. And yet, expansion adds an irony. Some galaxies are already too far, their light unable to catch up. As time passes, more will vanish beyond our event horizon. The cosmic party is slowly ghosting us, not because it dislikes our company, but because the rules of space dictate separation. In the distant future, observers will see only a lonely handful of galaxies clinging together, unaware that once the sky overflowed with countless others. The universe will have hidden its grandeur, not with walls, but with speed. Now imagine the reverse. Suppose space loops. If you could travel forever in a straight line, you might eventually meet your own galaxy from behind. Billions of years older, photons circling the cosmos could arrive from multiple directions, giving us mirrored images of ourselves. It would be the ultimate cosmic selfie, a universe photographing its own face from the far side. So far, we haven't found such patterns, but the possibility lingers, teasing us, reminding us that edges and loops can blur together. Here's a thought experiment to lull you further. Imagine standing in a forest, Trees rise around you in every direction. Look far enough, and eventually the trees blur into mist. Now imagine that forest goes on forever. There's no clearing, no wall, no final trunk. Just trees without end. That's one model of infinity, an endless expanse, the forest forever. Another model. The forest is vast but circular. Walk long enough and you return to the same grove, convinced you found new trees when in fact you've come home. Both forests feel infinite. Both erase edges. And both remind us that our minds are more comfortable with endings than with loops. Infinity also carries a strange consolation. If space stretches without limit, then repetition becomes unavoidable. Somewhere out there, the configurations of atoms repeat. Somewhere an identical Earth spins. Somewhere, your twin sits listening to this narration, wondering about edges. It's not science fiction, it's statistics. Given infinity, even rare patterns recur. Infinity doesn't just allow repetition, it guarantees it. And yet, the repetition isn't exact in any meaningful sense. It's not destiny. It's not a mirror meant for you. It's simply the nature of large numbers, inevitability drawn across endless possibilities. Infinity doesn't make you less unique. It makes uniqueness universal. Every variation, every difference, every possibility finds a home somewhere. The cosmos becomes a library where every book that can be written is already shelved. Edges again become irrelevant. But maybe the strangest twist is this. If the universe is infinite, then most of it is forever out of reach, not because it hides behind walls, but because the speed of light and the expansion of space build horizons we cannot cross. The largest parts of infinity are inaccessible. We are like fish in a vast ocean, sensing only the water near our fins, unaware of the endless sea stretching beyond sight. And still here we are, breathing, resting, curious. Inside infinity, wrapped in horizons, part of the unbounded. The universe doesn't give us edges, but it gives us something stranger. Inclusion. We are already inside, with no outside to exclude us. Infinity doesn't end, and neither does belonging. So tonight, let your thoughts wander. Let them drift past galaxies, slip through voids, circle balloons, chase photons. Let them slide across the idea that infinity can be both endless and edgeless, finite yet unbounded. And if they tangle themselves into knots, smile softly, because infinity has time to wait, and edges are in no hurry to appear. Infinity, for all its grandeur, is not a thing that sits in the distance, waiting to be discovered. It's not a signpost to the end of the highway that reads, "Welcome to forever, population." All of it. No, infinity is woven into the very structure of what already surrounds us. Every breath you take, every flicker of light bouncing off the walls of your room, every grain of dust that drifts lazily in a sunbeam. All of these are built from patterns that carry infinity within them. Consider the atom. It feels small, humble even, the kind of thing you could tuck in your pocket if only physics would cooperate. But look closer. Orbitals swirl with electrons, probabilities replacing neat paths, numbers stretching across decimals that refuse to stop. Within each atom lurks an unending sequence, not because atoms themselves are infinite in size, but because the math describing them never really ends. That's infinity at work, not out there, but here, humming quietly in the scaffolding of matter. And then there's light. Photons don't carry little flags announcing edge of the universe. They simply travel, obedient to the rules of geometry, weaving paths across space. And yet, every beam of light is also a lesson in limits. Some photons reach us from galaxies billions of years away, messengers that have been sprinting since long before humans learned fire could cook meat instead of just scaring it. Others never arrive, stranded by expansion, their journey canceled by the treadmill of space racing faster than their speed. Infinity allows the journey to begin, but horizons decide which trips finish. Let's play with the balloon again. Imagine a tiny ant crawling across the surface. To the ant, the balloon feels endless. It sees no edge, only more rubber stretching under its feet. If the balloon expands, the ant notices other ants receding, growing smaller as they wander away. And if the balloon loops, the ant may one day stumble back to its starting point without realizing the cosmic prank. The ant is certain it has discovered new land, but really it's marching in circles on the same balloon, fooled by the curve. Replace the ant with us, and the balloon with the universe. And suddenly the analogy feels uncomfortably close to home. But here's the trick. Unlike balloons, the universe has no outside. The balloon's skin sits in a room, held by a hand, surrounded by air. The universe does not. Asking what's outside is like asking a word what it's printed on. The answer is meaningless. The word is its own context, just as the universe is its own space. Expansion doesn't need a void to spill into. It stretches itself, inventing new room with every moment. This makes edges less like walls and more like ideas. When you think of an edge, you picture cliffs, door frames, the moment where your blanket finally ends and the cold air nips your toes. But cosmological edges aren't physical. They're about observability, about where light can travel, about what can be influenced. The edge of the observable universe is not a cosmic fence, but a boundary drawn by time and expansion. Beyond it, things continue. We just don't get their postcards. Now imagine the far future. Expansion accelerates. Galaxies vanish from view one by one. Their light stretched too thin to ever arrive. Eventually, only the galaxies bound by gravity to our own remain visible. The Milky Way and its neighbors clumped in a quiet island of stars. An observer in that distant epoch might gaze at the dark sky and conclude the universe is small, static, and lonely. They'd never guess that once the heavens blazed with hundreds of billions of galaxies. Infinity is still there, but hidden, veiled by time's expansion. The irony is sharp. The bigger the universe grows, the less of it can be seen. And what of time itself? Between any 2 seconds lies an infinity of smaller moments. It's like a fractal staircase. Step down once, and another step appears beneath. Step again, and another waits endlessly. Clocks give us the illusion of discrete ticks, but the reality is smoother, continuous, unending. Time may not be infinite in duration, but it is infinite in resolution. That means even in the smallest gesture, your breath, your heartbeat, the blink of an eye, there are infinities nested within. Of course, infinity can be unnerving. It laughs at our desire for neatness. We want beginnings and endings, clean arcs, stories tied up with bows. Infinity gives us loops, stretches, possibilities without closure. But there's comfort, too, without edges. There's no outside to exclude you. You're never at risk of being left behind. You are already inside the totality, part of the continuum, carried along whether you understand it or not. Infinity doesn't require your permission. It simply includes you. Think for a moment about mathematics. Numbers stretch endlessly in both directions. You can always add one more, subtract one more, divide into smaller fractions. The number line has no edges, but it does have structure. It's ordered, pattern predictable. Infinity isn't chaos. It's continuity. The universe might follow the same logic. No walls, but rules. No end, but patterns. Now, let's slip in a bit of humor before the vastness swallows us whole. If infinity guarantees repetition, then somewhere out there is a universe where socks really do disappear into black holes every time you run the dryer. Another where coffee never cools, though perhaps that one would be dangerous for productivity. Infinity allows every possibility, including the ridiculous. Somewhere improbably, there's a galaxy shaped exactly like a rubber duck. Does that make our universe less real? Not at all. It makes it part of a library, so large it refuses to be shelved. The absence of edges also reshapes how we think about beginnings. The Big Bang wasn't an explosion in space. It was the expansion of space itself, not a firework bursting from a point, but a transformation of reality into something that could stretch. There is no center. Every point was once the beginning. Every point is still included. To ask where it happened is to misunderstand. It didn't happen in space. It created space. The origin is not behind us. We live inside it always, and perhaps that's the quiet secret of infinity. It isn't distant. It isn't foreign. It's already here, threading through every number, every atom, every moment. We imagine edges because we like borders. We crave closure, but the cosmos offers continuity instead, unbroken, unbounded, patient. So tonight, as your thoughts wander like drifting galaxies, let them rest on this. Edges are habits, not necessities. The universe doesn't carve cliffs into reality. It flows, curves, stretches, folds. And you, lying in stillness, are not outside that flow. You are as infinite as the stars you can't see, as endless as the horizon that recedes before you. You belong not at the edge, but in the heart of everything. The longer we sit with infinity, the more it begins to feel like an old, paradoxical friend, slippery, exasperating, and yet strangely comforting. It refuses to give you a straight answer, and maybe that's the point. Straight answers are for questions with edges. Infinity doesn't deal in edges. It deals in continuities. Think of walking into a library, not a normal library, with polite rows of books and a stern librarian telling you to keep your voice down, but a library so vast that its shelves stretch farther than sight itself. Every book that could exist is already there. Every variation, every draft, every sentence rearranged in every possible way. You could search forever and never run out of books to open. That's one way of imagining infinity, not a void, but a fullness so complete that edges have no relevance. And if our universe is such a library, then we're not merely visitors. We're part of the shelves themselves, paragraphs written in stardust. But still, that pesky question creeps back. If the universe is infinite, where is its edge? Edges are hard to abandon. They've been useful for survival. Edges kept our ancestors from falling off cliffs, kept food within baskets, kept fires inside the hearth. Without edges, life on Earth would have been a confusing mess. So it's no surprise that when we look to the cosmos, we bring the same habits with us. But the universe doesn't operate on human habits. It doesn't provide a neat margin line. It sprawls, unashamed, beyond categories we cling to. Let's revisit horizons. The observable universe is a practical boundary. It's not that reality ends 46 billion light years away. It's that light beyond that distance hasn't had time to reach us. Imagine watching fireworks, but arriving late. You see only the last sparks, not the explosion itself. The rest happened beyond your view, though not beyond existence. Our horizon is like that, a limit of arrival, not a limit of being. Now consider the event horizon of a black hole. It's often confused with an edge, but it isn't a wall. It's a boundary defined by light's loyalty. Beyond it, not even photons can escape gravity's grip. But space doesn't end there. Matter doesn't vanish at the horizon. It continues inward, hidden from view. Again, an edge that isn't a true edge. The cosmos seems to specialize in these illusions, boundaries that are really thresholds, transitions instead of terminations. And then there's the idea of curved space. If the universe loops back on itself, you could in principle travel forever and eventually end up where you began, like circumnavigating the globe. But on a grander, more disorienting scale, that's a finite universe without edges, limited in volume, but with no walls, a shape where every straight line eventually curls, a cosmic prankster's maze. Imagine the irony. You spend eternity searching for the edge, only to bump into yourself from behind, surprised to find you've been the edge all along. Humor helps when the ideas stretch thin. Infinity, after all, is not a polite dinner guest. It barges in, kicks off its shoes, and demands that you rethink what it means to end. Somewhere in this vastness, there may even be repetitions, planets eerily like Earth, stars configured in familiar ways, galaxies shaped like spirals you've already seen. Infinity doesn't mean everything happens once. It means everything happens endlessly. Rare events are not erased. They're guaranteed. The unlikely is just waiting for enough space. Now, what about the fate of all this? If expansion continues forever, we drift toward heat death, an eternal quiet where galaxies fade, stars extinguish, and energy evens out into uniform stillness. No walls, no sudden collapse, just a slow unwinding of complexity until nothing distinct remains. Infinity here becomes monotony, the universe whispering its last notes into silence. Or perhaps the big rip will take center stage. Expansion accelerates until gravity loses its grip. Galaxies unbind, solar systems scatter, planets split, atoms themselves pulled apart. Infinity, in this vision, doesn't fade. It explodes outward in a violent disassembly, like a magician's final trick gone horribly right. The curtain doesn't fall. It tears itself to shreds. And then, the romantic alternative, the big crunch. Expansion halts. Gravity regains dominance. Everything collapses inward. Galaxies colliding, stars merging, black holes devouring until the cosmos folds back into a single point. A circle completed. A storybook closed. Not an edge, but a cycle. The end that is also the beginning. At this point, you might wonder, do these possibilities contradict the idea of edgelessness? Not at all. None of them require walls. None of them imagine space suddenly stopping. Even endings in cosmology are not about cliffs. They're about transformations, phases, transitions, states of being reshaped. Whether the universe drifts, rips, or crunches, edges remain irrelevant. Now, let's step sideways into time again. Time feels linear. Seconds march past, tick after tick. But what if time is not a line? What if it's a loop, a curve, a shape we can't yet comprehend? There are models where the Big Bang is not a singular beginning, but a transition from a timeless state. A universe not created in a bang, but emerging like ice crystallizing from water. Before there was no before. Time itself began. That means the concept of before the Big Bang may be like asking, what's outside space? A question that dissolves when you look too closely. And here lies a gentle comfort. Infinity may not be something to solve. It may be something to inhabit. You don't need to know its edges to live inside it. You don't need to measure its span to feel its embrace. Infinity includes you already, whether it stretches forever or loops back on itself. You are not waiting at the border of reality, hoping for entry. You are inside, wrapped in horizons, carried along by expansion. So tonight, let your thoughts drift without trying to cage them. Let them wander like galaxies sliding apart. Let them rest on the idea that edges are not required for wholeness, that infinity is not absence but presence, not coldness but continuity. And if the thought feels too large, too strange, too slippery, then smile softly. Infinity is time. You do not need to hold it all at once, because here in this quiet moment, you are already surrounded by the infinite. You are inside it, inseparable from it, as much a part of it as the stars that fade and the galaxies that flee. And that, perhaps, is enough. If there's one lesson the cosmos seems intent on teaching, it's that the absence of edges does not mean the absence of meaning. We are so used to equating limits with purpose that when confronted with infinity, we assume it must be empty, indifferent, barren. But infinity is not blankness. It is structure without end, pattern without border, a tapestry that refuses to fray at the corners because it never had corners to begin with. Think about the night sky. On clear evenings, you can step outside and see stars scattered like sugar spilled across black velvet. It feels finite. There's a sky, there's the horizon, and beyond that lies sleep. But those pinpricks are reminders of a depth we cannot exhaust. Each star is a sun, each sun with its own orbiting companions, each companion orbiting in a galaxy that itself drifts within filaments of structure larger than any human scale can grasp. The sky is not a ceiling. It is a window, and windows, however small, are not edges. They are invitations. Now imagine the idea of a center. People love centers. The circle has one, a city has one, even a pizza has one. And it's usually the first bite to burn your tongue. So it's natural to imagine the universe must have a center too, some cosmic origin point from which everything burst outward. But that's another trick of our intuition. The Big Bang was an explosion in space. It was the expansion of space itself. Every point in the universe was once compressed into that singular density. Every point shares the same birth, which means every location is equally central. There's no middle, no favorite coordinate. You are the center, and so is everyone else. The cosmos hands out crowns like candy, democratizing the throne. It sounds absurd, but that's the geometry of expansion. Stand in any galaxy, and you see others receding. The farther they are, the faster they flee. It feels as if you're the hub of the wheel, the anchor of the outward rush. But pick another galaxy, and the view is identical. No center, no edge, only relativity masquerading as privilege. The universe doesn't appoint rulers. It appoints illusions. This raises another subtlety. Perhaps the question, where is the universe, is itself flawed. We want to locate it, pin it to coordinates, measure its volume like flour in a recipe. But the universe isn't in a place. It is the place. It is the totality of locations, the container of containers, the ground upon which all coordinates rest. Asking where it is, or what it expands into, is like asking where the number line lives. It doesn't live anywhere. It defines its own arena. Now let's return to time. It tempts us with edges, the beginning, the end, the ticking clock. But those edges blur on inspection. Between any two instants lies an infinity of subdivisions. Time, like space, hides endlessness in every fraction. And when cosmologists talk about the Big Bang, they remind us it was not a moment inside time, but the creation of time itself. Before the Big Bang may be as meaningless as north of the North Pole. Time did not begin in a place. It began as a property. Asking what came before may be like asking what color silence is. The answer is not red or blue. The answer is that the question dissolves. Infinity makes fools of us, but in the kindest way. It nudges us to think bigger, then bigger still, until the scale itself becomes comic. For instance, if space is infinite, then somewhere out there exists another Earth almost identical to ours, except perhaps with slightly different traffic laws or a species of pigeon that actually respects sidewalks. Somewhere else, there's a version of you listening to this same narration, except you're sitting in a hammock instead of bed. These aren't fantasies. They're statistical inevitabilities, the byproducts of unbounded possibility. Infinity in this sense is not mystical. It's mundane. It simply refuses to run out of variations. But here's a comfort. Repetition does not cheapen uniqueness. Just because infinite versions of you might exist doesn't mean this version matters less. Each variation is its own reality, its own story. Infinity doesn't dilute meaning. It multiplies it. Instead of edges confining significance, continuity allows significance to bloom in endless forms. Let's tilt the focus back to the future of the cosmos. As expansion accelerates, galaxies drift farther apart. One by one, their light slips beyond our reach, carried past the event horizon by the stretching fabric of space. The universe becomes lonelier, quieter. Stars exhaust themselves, planets grow cold, black holes evaporate in whispers of radiation. This is the heat-death scenario. Not a wall, not a crash, but a slow fade into uniform stillness. Infinity continues, but with less and less to punctuate it. The Big Rip offers a more flamboyant finale. Expansion doesn't just separate galaxies. It dismantles them. Solar systems scatter. Planets split. Atoms tear. Even space itself stretches beyond recognition. The universe doesn't stop. It unravels. Infinity becomes a performance piece, ending not with silence, but with chaos spread so thin that nothing remains. And then there's the cyclical dream, the big crunch. If dark energy reverses, if expansion halts and gravity reclaims authority, then the universe might collapse. Galaxies would collide, structures compress, stars devour one another until all folds back to the density of the beginning. The book closes where it opened, not an edge but a cycle. Infinity wearing a crown of recurrence. These are possibilities, not certainties. Observations suggest expansion continues, dark energy pressing outward. But the lesson remains. Whether drift, rip, or crunch, edges are not required. The universe ends, if it ends, not with cliffs, but with transformations. And perhaps this is the real beauty. Edges are human inventions. The cosmos doesn't need them. We draw lines because they help us navigate. Edges of pages, edges of cities, edges of maps. But reality itself flows without them. Even here in this quiet moment, lying under blankets, you are not on the edge of anything. You are inside infinity, part of continuity, inseparable from the fabric that stretches without end. Infinity is not waiting to be found. It has already included you. You don't need to chase it across galaxies. You don't need to measure its size. You are already written into its story, carved into its unbroken pattern. And whether the universe loops back or sprawls endlessly, you belong to it. Not at the periphery, not at the margin. Inside, always inside. So let yourself rest. Let your thoughts dissolve into the horizon, chasing galaxies without worrying where they end. Infinity does not end, and neither in the ways that matter. Do you? Infinity has a way of making even the boldest questions feel small. We ask, where does it stop? And infinity replies, why should I? We ask, where is the edge? And infinity shrugs as if to say, edges are your idea, not mine. It's a little like asking a cat to follow house rules. Possible in theory, endlessly ignored in practice. Think of how we picture endings. A road ends at a cul-de-sac. A movie ends with credits. A cake ends when someone eats the last slice, usually faster than anyone expected. Endings are tidy. They reassure us. But the universe does not care for tidy. Out in the great dark, things simply keep going, folding back, stretching further, weaving possibilities with no care for whether we've reached closure. Take the concept of flat space. Observations suggest the large-scale universe is nearly flat, like an endless sheet stretched taut. That flatness mathematically hints at infinity, galaxies extending without boundary, a plane with no walls. If that's true, then walking forever would never bring you back. There is no loop, no closure. Just more, always more, and yet flatness can deceive. The Earth, after all, looks flat from ground level. Wheat fields and oceans play the trick perfectly. Only by stepping back, by circling, do we see the curvature. The universe might be pulling the same stunt, appearing flat locally, while curving into a shape too vast to reveal itself within our horizon. Our sense of edges may simply be a scale problem. From the right vantage, what seems endless could curve, what seems flat could loop. Now, let's flirt with infinity's mischievous side again. If space is truly infinite, then probabilities stretch into inevitabilities. Somewhere impossibly far away exists a world exactly like this one, except maybe the grass is purple or fish recite poetry instead of swimming. Somewhere else, another you sits listening to this narration while wearing socks that actually match. Infinity doesn't allow oddities, it demands them. Given enough space, even the rarest outcomes repeat. Infinity doesn't roll dice once. It rolls forever, and every combination appears. This thought can feel dizzying, like spinning too quickly on a carousel. But there's an odd comfort buried in it. Infinity never runs out of room for difference. It never excludes. No matter how improbable, there's space for it. Infinity democratizes possibility. The universe doesn't stop at enough. It keeps going until every outcome has a place. Now let's glance again at horizons. The cosmic microwave background is one. It's the oldest light we can see, a relic from when the universe was just 380,000 years old. Before that, everything was too hot and dense for photons to travel freely. That glow is not the edge of the universe. It's the edge of visibility. Beyond it lies history we cannot access. Another example of edges that aren't walls but curtains drawn by physics, not by cliffs. And the cosmic event horizon is yet another. Galaxies beyond a certain distance are already unreachable. Their light will never catch us, no matter how patient we are. Expansion moves the finish line faster than we can run. But again, that's not an edge in space. It's an edge in relationship. The universe doesn't stop there. Our ability to interact does. Edges here are not endings. They're boundaries of communication, the limit of cosmic conversation. So much of our confusion comes from wanting the universe to behave like objects we know. We expect it to have borders like tables, centers like apples, outsides like balloons. But the universe is not furniture. It is not produce. It is not floating inside some larger living room. It is itself complete, self-defining, unbothered by our metaphors. And yet, the metaphors help. Without them, infinity slips away, a concept too vast to rest inside the mind. So we paint pictures, balloons, video game maps, libraries without walls. None are perfect, but each is a window, a way to glimpse the strangeness without needing to grasp all of it at once. Infinity doesn't require mastery. It requires willingness to sit with the discomfort of no edges, to let the thought breathe instead of trying to pin it down. Now, what of time's future? In the long arc ahead, expansion stretches space thinner and thinner. Galaxies disappear from view. Stars die. Black holes evaporate. This is the slow whisper of heat death. No cliff, no final wall. Just a gentle fading until the universe becomes uniform, smooth, silent. If edges comfort us because they bring closure, then heat death mocks that comfort. It gives us no ending, only an endless exhale into stillness. But there are wilder alternatives. In the Big Rip, expansion grows so violent that even atoms cannot hold together. Galaxies shatter, stars dissolve, planets split, molecules tear apart. Space itself becomes a shredding fabric. Infinity here is loud, catastrophic, unstoppable. An ending without edges, but not without drama. Or the big crunch, the cyclical dream. Expansion halts. Gravity regains its hold. Galaxies fall together, stars collide. Matter compresses until everything folds back into the density from which it came. The universe begins and ends in the same gesture, infinite in rhythm if not in span. No walls, no edges, only cycles. Each possibility, though wildly different, shares the same lesson. The universe does not require edges. Endings are not cliffs. They are transitions, transformations. The cosmos reshaping itself in ways that defy our categories. The absence of edges is not the absence of endings. It is simply the refusal to confine endings to walls. So where does this leave us? Right here, resting, listening, alive inside a universe that may stretch forever, or may loop, or may fade, or may collapse. All of these possibilities share one truth. You are not outside. You are not waiting at the border. You are already included, woven into the infinite pattern, stitched into the edgeless fabric. Infinity doesn't require your comprehension to hold you. It doesn't wait for you to measure its length. It has already included you. Every atom of your body a reminder of stars. Every breath proof that infinity is not distant. It is here, now quietly encompassing. So tonight, let yourself drift with that thought. No edges, no walls, no cliffs, only continuities, only horizons that shift, thresholds that transform, infinities that wait with endless patience. You are already part of it. You always were. Infinity likes to tease. The moment you think you've cornered it, pinned it down to something manageable, it slips away, grinning. You ask, how big is the universe? And infinity replies, bigger than your question. You ask, where does it end? And infinity folds its arms and says, endings are for stories, not for me. It's not trying to frustrate you. It's just being honest. We meanwhile are creatures of edges. We mark the edges of days with alarms, the edges of meals with dessert, the edges of houses with fences. Our calendars are a map of beginnings and endings. Infinity offers none of that. It is the guest at the dinner table who never excuses itself, the horizon that never stops receding, the library with shelves that refuse to end. But here's a twist. Perhaps edges are not as useful in the cosmic sense as we imagine. Edges tell us where something stops. But what if nothing stops? What if space itself is continuous, curving, stretching, without boundary? Then the question of edges isn't just unanswered, it's unnecessary. Think about a circle again. Run your finger around its circumference. Where does it begin? Where does it end? You could point anywhere and call it the start, but that's a human choice, not a property of the circle. The circle doesn't have a beginning or an ending. It has continuity. The same may be true of the universe. Edges are our invention. The cosmos plays by different rules. Now consider what physicists call flatness. Measurements of cosmic background radiation suggest our universe is flat on large scales. That means space doesn't curve back on itself like a sphere, at least not in any way we can detect. Flatness suggests infinity, galaxies stretching forever in every direction. But flatness also hides ambiguity. A space can be flat and still loop in clever topologies, like a video game map that wraps around when you reach the edge. We might be walking in circles without realizing. Our view, limited by horizons, may be too small to reveal the loops. Flatness isn't closure. It's a hint, an open-ended riddle. And then there's time. Oh, how we love to imagine time with edges. Birth and death, sunrise and sunset, beginnings and endings. But between any two ticks of the clock lies an infinity of smaller ticks. Time is not a chain of beads. It's a thread without seams, divisible without end. That means infinity isn't just out in space. It's under your fingertips, hiding between every heartbeat, every blink. Imagine this. The second hand on a clock sweeps forward. Between one tick and the next, a billion smaller moments exist. You don't notice them, but they're there, like secret rooms hidden between the bricks of a wall. Infinity doesn't announce itself. It whispers, tucked between the ordinary. And what about the Big Bang? We picture it as an explosion, a fireball in the void. But it wasn't in space. It was the expansion of space itself. There was no outside waiting, no empty field for the explosion to spill into. Space grew from itself, time unfolded, reality changed states. To ask what came before is to ask the wrong question. Before requires time, and time began at that moment. It's like demanding to know what the dictionary says before the letter A. There is no before. There's only the emergence of the alphabet. Now let's turn back to horizons. The observable universe stretches about 46 billion light years in every direction. That sounds like a lot, and it is, but it's only a bubble around us, defined by how far light has traveled since the Big Bang. Beyond it, galaxies continue. We simply can't see them yet or ever. Our bubble is not an edge. It's a window. And windows don't define houses. They just define your view. The cosmic event horizon is another. It tells us which galaxies are forever out of reach. Expansion ensures some light will never arrive. That's not a wall in space. That's a consequence of speed. Beyond that horizon, the universe continues. We just don't get to share coffee with it. It's humbling, isn't it? To realize the vast majority of the universe lies permanently outside our reach. Not because it hides, but because physics sets limits. We are like children at a carnival holding balloons, able to see only the lights on our side of the fence. The carnival doesn't end at the fence. Our perspective does. And yet, even in that humility lies wonder. Because horizons are not prisons. They are reminders that reality is bigger than perception. The absence of edges is not emptiness, it's invitation. Now, let's tilt toward the future. If expansion continues, galaxies will vanish from view. One by one, their light will slip away. Stars will age, collapse, or fade. Black holes will evaporate in whispers. The universe will approach heat death, a uniform stillness where energy spreads so thin nothing distinct remains. Not a wall, not a cliff, just an endless evening settling in forever. Or expansion could accelerate to a violent extreme. The Big Rip. Gravity loses its grip. Galaxies tear apart, planets split, atoms disassemble. Even space itself stretches beyond cohesion. Infinity doesn't stop. It pulls harder until nothing holds. The finale is not silence, but rupture. Or perhaps gravity wins. Expansion halts, reverses. Galaxies fall inward, stars collide. Matter compresses into density unimaginable. The big crunch. The beginning becomes the ending. The ending becomes the beginning. No edge, only cycle. Each vision is different, each unsettling. Yet each shares the same refusal. No cosmic wall, no edge. Endings come as transitions, not fences. Infinity doesn't require cliffs to change the landscape. So where does that leave you here now, lying in quiet? It leaves you inside continuity, inside infinity. You are not on the edge of reality, not waiting to be admitted. You are already included. Every atom in your body was forged in stars, shaped by forces that know no boundary. You are stitched into the fabric, not sitting on top of it. Infinity doesn't make you small. It makes you inseparable. You are not lost in endlessness. You are carried by it, held by it, part of it. And edges are only the habits of thought, not the properties of space. So rest easy. There are no walls, no cliffs, no sudden drop at the border of existence. There's only the hum of expansion, the whisper of horizons, the gentle patience of infinity. And you already inside, already home. There's a hush that arrives when you make peace with not finding a wall. A room with no corners feels strange at first. The eyes keep searching for an angle to land on, but then the body relaxes, as if it always knew that edges were training wheels and not the road. Out in the dark, the cosmos keeps moving, and you keep breathing, and neither requires a fence to make sense. Consider how often the universe answers with curves. Gravity bends light. Orbits are ellipses. Even the path of a tossed set of keys isn't a straight line, but an arc, a small confession of the Earth's pull. Curves are nature's signature. So if the largest thing we can imagine, the space that contains every path, also prefers curves to corners, should we really be surprised? An edgeless universe doesn't rebel against our intuition so much as complete it. You can test this idea gently, without equations. Walk your attention across the room. The air doesn't stop at the doorway. It thins, mixes, continues. Sound doesn't end at your ear. It's transformed into nerve signals and then into the soft theater of perception. Even your thoughts don't slam shut. They taper, fade, braid into one another until some new thought arrives, wearing pieces of the old ones like a borrowed coat. We live in gradients far more than we live in borders. Perhaps the universe is simply honest about that. There is another quiet twist waiting at the edge that isn't. Information. Physicists have learned to speak of limits not as walls, but as bounds. How much information can be packed into a region? How many distinct arrangements can be meaningfully different before the details blur? It's as if reality, at its most patient scale, keeps tidy books. Not a fence, just a ledger. This much can be stored here. This much can be known there. Even black holes, those dramatic librarians of the cosmos, don't end space at their horizons. They keep records on the surface, inscrutable and precise, as though the universe prefers to write its stories on skins rather than in interiors. If that metaphor makes you smile, the cosmos has a sense of humor. Otherwise, why would quantum mechanics and gravity compare notes in such mischievous ways? A horizon isn't a brick wall. It's a place where bookkeeping becomes interesting. Beyond, things continue. Here, their influence stops. The boundary is not a verdict, it's a receipt. And then there's the way scale plays its favorite trick. Up close, a coastline looks jagged, endless, all detail. From far away, it smooths into a curve, then into a line, then into a point on a map. Whereas the true edge of the shore, it depends on your ruler. Space itself may be teasing us with the same game. From our scale, it's flat. From some larger ruler, it may reveal a slow, stately curve. From an even larger one, perhaps a loop. The question, is there an edge, becomes, which scale did you bring? You might wonder whether an edgeless universe means an edgeless you. Not in the everyday sense. You still end where your skin meets the air. But in the deeper sense, you are threaded into the same continuity. Every atom in your body is a relocation of star stuff. The heat you carry is fossil sunlight. The sodium in your blood remembers ancient seas. If space has no border, then you are stitched to its fabric by ancestry and by physics. And both of those are quite bad at paperwork that says separate. Let the thought drift downstream to time again. We keep time with second hands and calendars. But time itself is more like a river you can dip any cup into and never empty. Between two beats of your heart, more moments hide than you could count in a lifetime. We don't experience those sub-moments individually. Brains are pragmatic. But they are there, ready to be noticed in the precision of a laser, the dance of an atom, the patience of a glacier. If edges are closures, then time is the gentlest refusal. Some nights, it helps to reframe the puzzle as etiquette. The universe has manners, just not the ones we expected. It won't slam a door in your face labeled end. It will, however, leave notes. This is as far as light can reach. This is how geometry behaves. This is where influence fades to quiet. It is polite enough to be consistent and impolite enough to ignore our desire for a border we can photograph. And what of the rumor that we might one day see our galaxy from behind? That space could loop so thoroughly that starlight circles round like a marathoner spotting their own footprints. If such topology exists, it is sprawling beyond our current sight, conspiratorial in its scale. Photons would crisscross the sky, and ancient images of familiar things would arrive from surprising directions. For now, observations whisper probably not, or at least not so small a loop as to catch. But the idea lingers like music after the song has ended. Not proof, possibility. Not an edge, an encore. Infinity also has a practical kindness. It takes the pressure off conclusions. If there's no final wall, you are allowed to rest before the answer. You are allowed to sleep with the question open. The mind loves the tidy click of understanding, but the body loves the long exhale that comes when understanding is not required. You are not neglecting the cosmos by drifting off mid-thought. You are imitating it, continuing without needing to stop. Imagine, gently, a field at night. Crickets busy themselves with their metronomes. The air carries coolness like a gift. And above you the sky arranges its stars with a confidence that does not ask for applause. You could walk until morning and not find the place where the field ends and the universe begins, because that separation was never real. Fields become roads, roads become towns, towns blur into hills, and then into horizon. The horizon is only the near edge of sight, not of being. Edges that matter to footsteps are not the same as edges that matter to existence. When the future leans in heat death or rip or crunch, remember how each scenario speaks the same steady language. Continuation into a new state. No cliff, no sign that says beyond this reality stops. Just the universe, changing its outfit. In the long arithmetic of stars, endings are rarely cancellations. They are almost always transformations. There's a small, sly comfort in admitting that the biggest questions are bigger than the tools you carry to bed. You don't need to resolve the curvature of space any more than you need to memorize the digits of pi. You only need to accept what your senses are already modeling each time you breathe. Flow without boundary. Motion without edges. Inhale gathering. Exhale widening. The chest is a miniature cosmos, expanding not into anything, but as itself. If the absence of an edge still feels unsettling, hold on to this simple truth. You have never been outside. Not once. Not for a second. From the first moment matter recognized itself, as you've been inside the only container that exists, the one that contains containers. Whether space circles back or runs on without end, you are held in it, carried by it, made of it. There is nowhere to fall off to. There is nowhere to be exiled from. Let that be the lullaby tonight. Not a wall that keeps you safe, but a wholeness that makes safety unnecessary. Not a door that locks, but a room that never ends and somehow still feels like home. If you need a picture, keep the simplest one. A horizon that recedes kindly as you walk, inviting, never scolding, always a few steps ahead. Like a gentle host who knows that arrival is not a place, but feeling. And if you smile at that, at the idea of the universe as the most attentive host, then you've already guessed the last soft joke. We wondered where the edge went. And the universe answered by rearranging the furniture so comfortably that we forgot to ask again. Infinity, when you sit with it long enough, begins to feel less like a number and more like a personality. It doesn't rush, it doesn't argue, it doesn't defend itself. It simply continues. If edges are declarations, then infinity is a shrug. If borders are shouts, infinity is a whisper that never stops. Consider how often our minds demand boundaries just to feel oriented. We like beginnings, the first chapter of a book, the opening scene of a film, the first step on a trail. We like endings too. The final page, the closing credits, the return home. Our stories are built on them. But the cosmos, with mischievous patience, insists that not all stories need that scaffolding. Some tales are told without borders. Some roads never promise a finish line. And we, though restless, are still capable of listening to such stories. Take the geometry of closed space. Imagine walking in a straight line and after unfathomable time, returning to where you began, to you. The journey felt endless, yet you were inside a loop the whole time. That's a finite universe without edges. No cliff, no wall, no sudden drop. Just a path that circles back, disguised as forever. The trick is scale. If the loop is vast enough, it feels indistinguishable from infinity. From our vantage point, with our limited horizon, how could we tell the difference? Now think of open space. Galaxies drift apart, the fabric stretches endlessly, and the road never circles back. Walk forward forever, and forever continues to give way. No borders, no closure, just the persistence of more. These models, closed, open, flat, sound different, but none contain an edge. Edges are furniture of the mind, not of the cosmos. There's a quiet comedy in how horizons pretend to be edges. The observable universe is just a sphere defined by time and light. Beyond it, things exist, galaxies, stars, perhaps even regions with physics slightly altered. But we can't see them. Our cosmic neighborhood ends not with a wall, but with a curtain pulled across the stage. Behind it, the play continues, though we'll never hear those lines. The curtain isn't malicious. It's simply distance multiplied by time. And there is the cosmic event horizon, where expansion ensures that certain galaxies are permanently unreachable. We are not separated from them by cliffs. We are separated by velocity. The distance grows faster than light can cross it. They retreat not into nothingness, but into untouchability. The edge here is not a place. It's a limit of influence. And limits, unlike edges, can shift, expand, and breathe. Now imagine the long future. The night sky thins. Galaxies vanish beyond sight. Stars exhaust themselves. Planets grow cold. Even black holes dissolve into faint radiation. This is the heat-death vision. Not a slam of a door, but an endless exhale. No wall appears. No sudden stop. Just a universe that continues into stillness, infinite in space and in time, but emptied of contrast. Infinity here does not end. It grows quiet. Or consider the big rip. Expansion accelerates until even molecules can't hold together. Galaxies shred, planets burst, atoms tear. No walls then either, just dissolution. The fabric of space stretched so violently that it ceases to be fabric at all. Infinity continues, but everything woven into it frays. And then the big crunch. Expansion halts. Gravity pulls inward. Galaxies collapse together. Stars merge. Black holes devour. Everything converges to a density that mirrors the beginning. Not an edge, an echo. Now all a loop. The ending that folds back into a beginning. Infinity continues, but by rhythm instead of by stretch. All of these visions show how edges are absent, even in endings. The universe doesn't slam doors. It changes states. Transitions are its language. Now, let's turn sideways into numbers. Between 0 and 1 lie infinite fractions. Between any two of those fractions, infinite decimals. Infinity nested inside finitude, like a matryoshka doll that refuses to run out of layers. When you measure a circle, you meet pi. Its digits running forever, never repeating. Infinity, again, written into geometry. Infinity is not distant. It is present, lurking inside every equation you've ever trusted. And still our minds rebel. They want the story to have a border. They want to ask, but what lies beyond? As though the universe were a room and we could simply walk outside. But the universe is no outside. It doesn't expand into something larger. It expands as itself. To ask what's beyond is like asking what's north of the North Pole. The question dissolves because the frame doesn't apply. Humor helps here. Imagine explaining this to your pet. You tell your dog, the universe has no edge. The dog tilts its head, unconvinced, waiting for you to throw a ball. And perhaps that's the right response. Infinity doesn't demand we grasp it fully. It only asks that we let it be. Like a ball never thrown, it remains potential, boundless, unconcerned with whether the dog or the human understands. What then of meaning? If space has no edge, if time stretches or loops without bound, do we lose our sense of place? Quite the opposite. Without edges, there's no outside to be excluded from. You are not at risk of falling off reality. You are not precariously balanced on some cosmic balcony. You are inside, always inside. Infinity has already included you. Every atom in your body was built in stars, carried through explosions, scattered across space, gathered into you. Every photon striking your eyes tonight has traveled billions of years across edgeless space to arrive. You are not apart from the infinite. You are stitched into it, as surely as galaxies are stitched into the fabric of expansion. So let the thought settle. Edges are human habits. The universe prefers curves, continuities, horizons. You are safe in that preference. You are held by it. Infinity does not end, and neither does your belonging within it. And if, in this moment, your eyelids grow heavy, let them. The universe is patient. Infinity has no deadline. You can drift into dreams knowing that you are already inside the only story that has no border and no need for one. The longer you walk through the thought of infinity, the more it becomes less like a concept and more like an atmosphere, something you breathe without effort, even if you don't notice. You can fight it, of course. You can insist on walls, crave boundaries, beg for the clean lines of endings. But infinity doesn't argue. It waits like a quiet sky until your questions grow tired and you realize there was never a wall to lean against in the first place. Think about how we name things. We name continents, oceans, galaxies. We carve the continuous into labeled parcels, convincing ourselves that divisions are real. But water doesn't care about the border drawn on a map. Wind doesn't stop at the line between one country and another. Light does not slow down to respect the edge of your backyard. The universe doesn't recognize our markers. It rolls on, indifferent to the fences we build in our minds. And perhaps in that indifference lies its greatest kindness. Consider again the image of the balloon. To an ant crawling on its surface, there is no edge. The world stretches in all directions. If the balloon inflates, other ants recede, not because they're walking away, but because the surface itself is stretching. To the ant, everything feels flat. And if the balloon is large enough, it might never realize the surface curves at all. That's us, peering into galaxies and concluding space is flat. From here, it looks that way. But the true geometry might be playing a grander trick, one so subtle it requires scales beyond our reach to reveal. Now, bring your attention to light. Each photon is a traveler, sprinting since the dawn of time. Some arrive at your eyes tonight, carrying news from galaxies billions of years gone. Others will never arrive, their paths outpaced by expansion. Light is both the evidence of infinity and the reminder of limits. We can see only as far as light has traveled. Beyond that, existence continues unbothered by whether we witness it. The edge of our vision is not the edge of reality. It is the patience of distance. And what a centers. We love them. We plant monuments in town squares, tell stories about beginnings. But the universe refuses to offer center. Every galaxy sees itself surrounded by others rushing away. Every point claims the illusion of being the hub. Expansion does not crown favorites. It hands out thrones like party hats. Everyone wears one. None are unique. The center is everywhere, which is another way of saying it's nowhere. This, too, unsettles us. We like to imagine an origin point, a place we could visit if only we had the right map. But the Big Bang was not a firework in space. It was the expansion of space itself. There was no outside to expand into, no distant corner where it all began. Every point you see was once part of the beginning. Every location was equally the origin. You don't need to find the center. You're already standing in it. Now, let's tilt forward into the future. If expansion continues, the sky grows lonelier. Galaxies slide beyond sight, their light never reaching us. Stars exhaust their fuel. Black holes evaporate. Matter thins into uniform quiet. This is heat death, the slow fade into stillness. Infinity without contrast, space stretched into silence. It sounds bleak, but it is not a wall. It is simply another way infinity expresses itself, by carrying on without drama, without edges, without end. The Big Rip, on the other hand, is drama incarnate. Expansion accelerates until atoms cannot hold. Galaxies shred, stars scatter, planets tear. Space itself unravels. Infinity here doesn't stop, it overplays its hand, tearing apart the very fabric that carried it. The edge, if you can call it that, is everywhere at once. And still it is not a wall. It is a transformation. And then the big crunch, gravity's revenge. Expansion halts, reverses. Galaxies collapse inward, stars merge, matter folds, space contracts. The universe ends as it began, dense, compressed, waiting. The cycle loops. No edge, only rhythm. It's worth smiling at the irony. No matter how apocalyptic the scenario, none of them involve a wall. The universe does not fall off cliffs. It changes costumes. Whether it fades, rips, or crunches, it continues without needing edges. Now let's slip sideways into numbers again. Between 1 and 2 lie infinite decimals. Between any 2 decimals, infinite more. A line segment, finite in length, hides an infinity of points. Infinity is not always about size. Sometimes it's about depth, about how much can fit into what looks small. Your own body is proof of this. Trillions of cells, each filled with molecules. Each molecule filled with atoms. Each atom filled with probabilities instead of certainties. You contain infinities layered inside you, and yet you fit comfortably beneath your blanket. If that doesn't make you smile, consider this. Every breath you take carries molecules, once exhaled by ancient forests, dinosaurs, even the first humans. In a sense, you are inhaling history every night. Infinity ensures the recycling never ends. Edges dissolve in the continuity of breath. And what about meaning? People worry that infinity makes us small. If there's no edge, no center, are we insignificant? But infinity doesn't erase meaning. It multiplies it. You are not one fragile point in a void. You are part of the fabric that refuses to stop. Without edges, there's no outside to exclude you. Without walls, there's no risk of being left behind. You are inside, always inside. Infinity has already claimed you. So tonight, let go of the craving for borders. Let your mind drift as galaxies drift, without needing a fence to keep them in. Infinity doesn't need you to solve it. It only needs you to rest within it. And as your thoughts grow slower, heavier, like stars settling into the quiet after fusion fades, remember, the universe does not wait at the end with a sign that says stop. It does not need to. Continuity is enough, and you lying here are already carried by it. Infinity is patient, and patience has a way of softening even the sharpest questions. The more you sit with it, the more the need for answers fades, replaced by the quiet realization that some mysteries aren't meant to be solved but lived inside. The universe doesn't hand you a wall to lean against. It hands you an endless horizon and says, walk as far as you like. I'll keep making more road. Edges, after all, are our invention. We invented them for survival. A cliff edge warns us to stop. A forest edge tells us we've reached shelter. A border edge marks territory. But those are human edges, local conveniences in a vast reality that doesn't need them. The universe is not a table with corners. It is not a room with walls. It is not a playground where we might wander too far and fall off. It is continuity itself, a seamless weave that keeps going whether we recognize it or not. Think again of the observable universe. 46 billion light years in every direction sounds immense, yet it is only a bubble of vision. Light has had only so much time to reach us. Beyond it, galaxies keep spinning, stars keep burning, matter keeps unfolding. The bubble is not a fence. It's just how far our eyes, through telescopes, through detectors, can reach. If we wait, the bubble grows as new light arrives. But expansion ensures the bubble never catches everything. There's always more unseen, and always will be. That's not an edge. That's an invitation. And what of black holes? Their horizons are often mistaken for edges, but they're really thresholds. Cross the event horizon, and escape becomes impossible, not because you slammed into a wall, but because the rules of motion change beneath your feet. The inside continues, even if we cannot know it. The boundary is not an ending. It is a place where influence pauses, where information is recorded like ink on the surface of a page. Even here, in the most dramatic objects we know, edges are revealed to be transformations, not terminations. Now tilt the view toward geometry. A flat universe may stretch infinitely. A closed one may loop like the surface of a sphere, finite yet unbounded. An open one may curve forever outward. Each model is different, but none require a wall. Whether infinity sprawls or loops, the absence of an edge is consistent. The universe does not grant us cliffs. It grants us continuity in various costumes. It's humbling to realize how time conspires in the same way. Between any two instants lies an infinity of smaller ones. A second can be divided forever. Even the smallest heartbeat contains more moments than we can count. Clocks disguise this by ticking discreetly. But time itself flows seamlessly, endlessly divisible. Edges, again, are our tools, not realities. We chop time into hours and minutes the way we chop bread into slices. Forgetting the loaf never had edges until we cut them. Now consider the future. Expansion accelerates. Galaxies vanish from view. Stars extinguish. Black holes fade. In the heat-death scenario, the universe grows smooth and silent, a vast expanse of uniform cold. It sounds like an ending, but it isn't a wall. It is a continuation into quiet, the cosmos exhaling forever without ever stopping. The Big Rip is more chaotic, expansion shredding everything. Atoms tear apart, molecules disintegrate, space itself unravels. Infinity does not end here either. It simply changes character, from serenity to violence. No edge, only transformation. The Big Crunch is the opposite, the contraction of everything back into density. Galaxies colliding until the universe folds inward. Again, no wall, no outside, just a rhythm, beginning and ending as two notes in the same song. The lesson is steady. No scenario offers a cosmic cliff. Edges do not appear. The universe is too graceful for that kind of drama. But infinity, mischievous as always, also plays with probability. If space is infinite, then every arrangement of matter occurs. Some are common, others vanishingly rare. But given enough room, all appear. That means somewhere impossibly far away, another Earth spins. Somewhere else, another you wonders about edges. Not because destiny demanded, but because infinity rolls every combination. The unlikely is not erased. It is guaranteed. Does that make us less unique? Not at all. Each version is its own reality. Infinity doesn't dilute significance. It multiplies it. You are one of countless variations, but no less real, no less meaningful. Infinity doesn't cheapen. It enriches. Even mathematics whispers the same secret. Between 0 and 1 lie infinite numbers. A line segment, finite in length, hides infinite points. Circles reveal pi, whose digits stretch forever. Infinity is not exotic. It is ordinary, woven into the pencil scratches of everyday geometry. The universe follows the same script. Infinity is not decoration, it is the stage. So tonight, when your mind wanders to the question, where is the edge? Let it wander further. Let it drift into the thought that edges are for stories, for rooms, for fences. The cosmos has no need for them. It carries on, curving, stretching, unfolding. You're already part of that carry, woven into the fabric. You have never stood at the border of reality. You have always been inside it. And maybe that is the quiet comfort. There is no edge to fall from, no outside to be excluded to. You are held by infinity, inseparable from it, included without condition. Rest in that thought. Let it cradle you as gently as gravity cradles stars. The universe has no edge, and therefore, neither does your belonging. Infinity has an odd sense of humor. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or trumpet blasts. It shows up quietly in the most ordinary places, on the number line, in the spaces between seconds, in the starlight that takes billions of years to arrive at your eyes. It hides in plain sight, as if daring you to notice. And when you do, it simply shrugs, as if to say, of course I was here all along. Think of the line between 2 points. You'd expect that to be simple. A beginning, an ending, a tidy edge at each side. But the line refuses to behave. Between those 2 points, infinite others exist. Divide it once, and you get more. Divide again and more still. There's no last subdivision, no smallest piece. Even in something as finite as a pencil stroke, infinity smuggles itself inside. This is the universe's favorite trick, to hide the boundless within the bounded. Now imagine time. We measure it with ticks, with alarms, with birthdays marked by candles. Yet between one tick and the next lies an infinity of smaller instants. Time does not arrive in beads on a string. It flows without seams, endlessly divisible. We carve it into hours for our convenience. But time itself ignores our knives. Edges again belong to us. Time is smooth. And space carries the same mischief. We expect a center, an edge, an outside. But when we look carefully, expansion refuses to give us those comforts. Every galaxy sees itself as the middle. Every observer watches neighbors drift away. No one location is special. The crown of centrality rests on every head at once. The edge? It never appears. Expansion makes sure of that. The observable universe tempts us with the illusion of an edge. 46 billion light years in every direction. A sphere defined by the reach of light. But that's not the whole. Beyond the horizon, galaxies continue. Stars burn, worlds spin, space stretches. We can't see them, but they don't need our vision to exist. The horizon is not an edge. It is a limit of sight, a cosmic eyelid drawn by time. And the event horizon of black holes plays the same joke. From the outside, it looks like a wall, a point of no return. But it is not a barrier in the way cliffs are barriers. It is a threshold. Matter crosses, space continues, though our information about what happens becomes trapped on the surface. Even the most terrifying objects in the universe obey this rule. Horizons are not ends. They are records, not edges, but translations. This pattern repeats at every scale. We want endings. The cosmos offers continuities. We ask for borders. The cosmos provides gradients. We expect cliffs. The cosmos answers with curves. Now, let's tilt forward into the future of all things. In the heat-death vision, expansion carries galaxies away, stars burn out, black holes evaporate, and the universe grows silent. It is not an edge. It is a fading. Infinity without interruption, but quieter with every breath. In the big rip, Expansion accelerates so violently that atoms themselves split. Planets shatter. Molecules disintegrate. Space unravels. Even here it is not a wall. It is dissolution, a transformation into chaos. Infinity does not end. It changes costume. And in the big crunch, gravity's hand pulls everything back inward. Galaxies fall, stars collide, matter collapses into density. The universe ends where it began, not by stopping, but by cycling. A story told again in rhythm, not confined by an edge. 3 fates, 3 voices. None involve offense. The universe doesn't fall off cliffs. It changes state. What about probability? Infinity ensures that every possibility finds a place. However unlikely, given enough room, it happens. Somewhere impossibly far away, another version of you listens to this same narration. Somewhere else, galaxies form in shapes we've never imagined. Infinity doesn't dabble in possibility. It guarantees it. Edges cannot survive in such a world. Variation refuses to be boxed. This doesn't erase meaning. It multiplies it. Uniqueness still holds because each variation is its own reality. Infinity does not make you smaller. It makes your existence part of a tapestry too vast to unravel. You are one thread, yes. But without that thread, the fabric is incomplete. Even mathematics cannot resist this theme. Circles reveal pi, a number that never ends. Fractions unfold into decimals without closure. Infinite series converge or diverge, but never stop generating terms. Infinity is not exotic. It is embedded in the equations we use to measure coffee mugs and playground swings. The ordinary is saturated with the infinite. So if tonight your thoughts return again to the question, where is the edge? Smile at it. It's a question that belongs to tables and cliffs, not to the cosmos. The universe has no use for such lines. You are not standing near the border of reality. You are woven into its fabric. You have always been inside, and there is no outside. This is the comfort infinity offers. Not a wall to keep you safe, but a wholeness that makes safety unnecessary. Not a fence to hold you in, but a fabric that never ends and never lets you fall away. You are included without condition, carried without effort, part of the story whether you understand it or not. Rest in that thought. Rest in the endlessness that has already claimed you. Infinity is not something to reach. It is something you are already breathing. Infinity never hurries. It doesn't tap its foot impatiently or check its watch. It simply unfolds. The absence of edges means there's no deadline, no finish line, no sudden stop. The universe carries on at its own pace, and we, restless creatures of beginnings and endings, have to learn how to sit with that kind of patience. It helps to start with the familiar. Think of the horizon you see when you stand by the sea. The ocean looks like it ends where water meets sky, but the horizon is not a wall. It shifts as you move. It isn't fixed, it isn't final. It's a limit drawn by your vantage point. The cosmos offers us horizons in the same way. Boundaries that belong not to space itself, but to perspective. The observable universe is such a horizon. It isn't the end of everything. It's just how far light has had time to reach us. Beyond it, existence continues without caring whether our eyes can see. The cosmic event horizon is another. Expansion ensures some galaxies are already lost to us forever. Their light stretched too thin to arrive. But that isn't a wall either. It's a kind of agreement between speed and distance. We can't talk to each other anymore. But both sides continue their conversations elsewhere. Edges, in this sense, are not endings. They're quiet partings. Black holes, too, tempt us with the illusion of an edge. Their event horizons look like endings, the place where matter vanishes, the boundary no one returns from. But inside, space continues. The edge is only in terms of what we can know, not in terms of what is. Information lingers at the surface, like ink on a page, even as the story inside becomes unreadable. The cosmos writes boundaries like footnotes, never as full stops. Now imagine curved space. If the universe is finite but unbounded, then walking forever in one direction could eventually bring you back to where you started. A loop disguised as a road without end. The irony is sharp. From inside, it feels infinite. But from above, if there were an above, it would be a closed surface. The question of edges dissolves into the question of shape. And if space is flat and infinite, then there is no loop, no return. Galaxies stretch endlessly in every direction. Walk forever. And forever continues to supply more path. Infinity without interruption. No cliff, no border. Just continuation. What about time? We love to imagine it as a line with edges. Birth and death, sunrise and sunset. Calendars with beginnings and endings. But time, too, resists our categories. Between any two instants lie infinite smaller ones. Time is not beads on a string, but a fabric that can be divided without end. Even the smallest blink contains infinities nested inside it. Edges of time are conveniences, not properties. We mark them, but time itself ignores them. And the Big Bang? It was an explosion inside space, but the expansion of space itself. No outside, no before. Asking what happened before time began is like asking what's north of the North Pole. The question dissolves not because it's forbidden, but because it doesn't apply. The universe began not in a location, but in a transition. Space unfolded, time emerged. Reality changed state. No edge, just transformation. The future offers the same lessons. In the heat-death scenario, galaxies drift apart, stars fade. Matter spreads thin until the universe is smooth and silent. Not a cliff, not a wall, just an infinite continuation into stillness. In the Big Rip, expansion accelerates so violently that atoms themselves are torn apart. Galaxies scatter, planets split, molecules unravel. Even here, no walls appear, only dissolution. Infinity persists, but with nothing structured left inside it. And in the Big Crunch, expansion halts, reverses, and gravity pulls everything inward. Galaxies collapse, stars collide, matter compresses. The universe ends where it began, not by falling off an edge, but by folding back into itself. A cycle, a rhythm. Each scenario is different, each unsettling, yet none involve edges. Endings, yes. Transformations, yes. But no cosmic cliffs, no final walls. Infinity doesn't stop. It changes costume. Now, consider probability. If the universe is infinite, then every arrangement of matter appears somewhere, however unlikely. Given enough room, it happens. Somewhere there is another Earth, another you, another sky full of stars. Infinity doesn't dabble in possibilities. It guarantees them. Edges cannot exist in such a framework. Variation itself becomes endless. And this doesn't make us less unique. It makes uniqueness everywhere. Each version of reality is its own truth. Each repetition is as real as the original. Infinity doesn't diminish. It multiplies. So where does that leave us? Right here, lying beneath blankets, inside a cosmos that refuses to end. You are not near a wall. You are not standing at the edge of being. You are already within infinity, woven into its fabric, inseparable from its flow. Edges are for books and tables and fences. The universe has no use for them. Let that be the comfort tonight. There's no outside to exclude you from. There's no border where you might fall away. Infinity already hold you. You have never been anywhere else. Infinity does not arrive with drama. It doesn't knock loudly or kick open a door. It seeps into every corner of thought, reminding you that borders are only conveniences of the human mind. When you look closely enough at space, at time, at numbers, you see it everywhere. Not a wall in sight. Take a simple circle. To draw it is easy, one stroke of the hand. To describe it, however, requires pi, a number that stretches forever without repeating. A single loop on paper hides endless digits. That is how infinity prefers to appear. Quiet, disguised as the ordinary, revealed only when you follow the details far enough. Now take the universe itself. We ask again and again, where does it end? But the question is born of habits learned from cliffs and runes and roads. We expect a wall, a border, a moment where space says no further. Yet all the evidence tells us otherwise. Expansion continues. Galaxies recede. Horizons shift. The cosmos doesn't stop. It stretches, flows, transforms. The observable universe is one such reminder. A sphere 46 billion light years in radius. Not because the universe ends there, but because that's as far as light has traveled since the beginning. Beyond it, existence continues, unbothered by whether we can see. The edge here is not a wall. It is a limit of patience. Light simply hasn't had time to reach us yet. The cosmic event horizon adds another twist. Some galaxies are already out of reach forever. Expansion carries them away faster than light can close the gap. Their signals will never arrive. But this too is not an ending. It's a separation. The galaxies continue, just without us. A horizon isn't a fence. It's a boundary in relationship. Even black holes obey this law. Their horizons look like edges. But inside, space continues. The edge is not a termination. It is a translation of influence. Information clings to the surface, a cryptic record, while the interior remains hidden. Once again, what looks like a wall is really a threshold. What about geometry? A closed universe could loop on itself, walk straight long enough, and you'd arrive back where you started. No edge, just a path disguised as endless. An open universe stretches without return. Galaxies scattered into forever. A flat universe may do either, depending on its topology. None of these options involve cliffs. None require a border. And then there is time. We carve it into minutes and hours, beginnings and endings. But time itself flows continuously. Between any two moments are infinite more. Even in a single second, countless instants exist, invisible to us. Time is not beads on a string, it is a river. And rivers don't have edges where you imagine them. They flow into wider waters, into currents unseen. What of the Big Bang? We imagine it as a firework, a blast in space. But it wasn't in space, it was space. Time itself began. Before has no meaning. To ask what came before time is like asking what sound lies north of north. The question cannot be answered because the frame does not exist. Reality unfolded, space expanded, time ticked into being. Not a border, a transformation. Now look forward to what may come. In the heat death, galaxies drift away, stars die. Energy thins into uniform silence. Not a cliff, not a wall. Just continuation into stillness. Infinity doesn't stop. It simply smooths itself out. In the big grip, expansion grows so violent that atoms themselves disintegrate, galaxies scatter, planets split, molecules shred. Again, no all, just dissolution. Infinity does not end. It unravels. In the Big Crunch, gravity reverses expansion, galaxies collapse, matter folds inward. The universe ends where it began, dense and complete. But this isn't a border either. It is rhythm, a cycle that could repeat. Edges vanish in every vision, not because we lack imagination, but because the universe doesn't provide them. Endings exist, yes, but they arrive as changes, not cliffs. And then there is probability. Infinity ensures that all possibilities find space. However unlikely, given enough room, they occur. Somewhere impossibly far, there is another Earth. Somewhere another you. Not copies in any mystical sense, just outcomes of unbounded variation. Infinity does not choose favorites. It rolls every combination. Does this diminish you? No. It amplifies you. Your existence is one of endless variations, but it is yours, unrepeatable in the fabric of your experience. Infinity multiplies meaning rather than erasing it. Even mathematics refuses to give you a wall. Numbers stretch in both directions. Fractions unfold forever. Infinite series never stop producing terms. Infinity is not abstract. It is the structure beneath all calculation, hiding in every measurement you make. So tonight, when your mind circles the old question, where is the edge? Let it circle without expecting an answer. Let it wander, like galaxies drifting in expansion, without needing to stop. The universe doesn't stop. Infinity doesn't stop. Neither needs walls to justify themselves. And you resting here don't need walls either. You are not at the border of reality. You are already inside, woven into continuity, held by it without condition. Edges are human comforts. Infinity offers something deeper, belonging without limit. Infinity has a way of making our biggest fears seem small. We worry about falling, about endings, about the silence that comes after the story. Infinity answers with a calm shake of his head. There are no cliffs here, no sudden drop-offs, no final punctuation mark at the edge of space. The universe doesn't stop. It only changes shape. Think of it a river. We give rivers names, we chart their courses. And we say they begin at springs and end in seas. But rivers don't stop at the ocean. Their water becomes part of currents, part of clouds, part of rain that falls again to form more rivers. The boundaries we draw are conveniences. The cycle ignores them. The cosmos behaves the same way. It flows. Our edges are maps. Reality is movement. Consider again the cosmic horizon. The observable universe stretches 46 billion light years in every direction, a sphere defined by how far light has traveled since the Big Bang. But beyond that, existence carries on. The horizon is not an edge, it's a measure of patience. Every year new light arrives, pushing our horizon outward. The universe isn't waiting for us. It is simply continuing. And our window grows only as quickly as photons can climb into it. The event horizon of black holes repeats the lesson. Cross it, and escape becomes impossible. But space itself does not end. The interior continues, though hidden from our view. The edge here is a matter of perspective, of what can be known, not of what is. Even at their most dramatic, the universe's boundaries are thresholds, not terminations. Geometry offers the same refusal. A closed universe could loop, finite in volume yet without walls. An open universe could stretch endlessly, galaxies scattered into forever. A flat universe might hide subtle loops too vast to detect, or it might truly be infinite. In none of these cases does a cliff appear. The cosmos is too elegant for that kind of simplicity. And what about time? We insist on beginnings and endings because we see them in our lives. Birth, death, sunrise, sunset. But between any two moments lies infinity. Seconds can be divided forever. Instants hiding instants without end. Time is not made of beads, each separate. It is a fabric woven seamlessly. We slice it into hours for convenience. But time itself does not recognize our knives. The Big Bang complicates our longing for edges even more. We picture an explosion in a void, but it wasn't in space. It was space. Time began there. Asking what came before is like asking what's outside the universe. It's a question that dissolves not because answers are forbidden, but because the frame of the question doesn't exist. There was no outside, no before, just transformation into something new. Now imagine the far future. In the heat-death scenario, galaxies drift away, stars die. Matter spreads thin until the universe becomes uniform. Not a cliff, not a wall, just continuity into quiet. Infinity doesn't need to stop. It can continue forever into silence. The Big Rip is louder. Expansion accelerates. Galaxies scatter. Planets split. Atoms tear. Space itself shreds. But even here it isn't a wall. It is dissolution. Infinity changing character. No edge, only chaos. And the big crunch is gravity's encore. Expansion halts, reverses, galaxies collapse inward, matter compresses into density. The universe ends where it began, not by falling away, but by folding inward. Infinity becomes rhythm. These endings are not endings in the way we expect. They are not cliffs. They are states, transitions. The universe shifts, but it does not fall. Probability deepens the lesson. If the cosmos is infinite, then every arrangement of matter occurs. However unlikely it will happen. Somewhere there is another Earth. Somewhere there is another you. Not copies in any mystical sense, but outcomes of unbounded variation. Infinity doesn't dabble in possibility. It guarantees it. This doesn't erase meaning. It magnifies it. Your existence is not diluted by endless versions. It is amplified by them. Infinity means uniqueness is everywhere. Every variation is as real as the one you live. Even mathematics refuses to give you a wall. Between any two numbers are infinite others. Fractions unfold endlessly. Circles hide pi, digits without end. Infinity is not foreign. It is written into every geometry lesson, every equation that holds the world together. So when you find yourself asking again, where is the edge? Let the question itself dissolve. It belongs to cliffs and rooms and roads. The cosmos has no use for it. You are not standing near a border, waiting to be admitted. You are already inside, always inside. Infinity has included you from the beginning, and that perhaps is the quietest comfort of all. There's nowhere to fall off to, no outside to be excluded from, no edge to threaten your belonging. You are here, already carried, already part of the endlessness. Infinity does not argue. It doesn't even need to explain. It just holds you the way it holds galaxies, the way it holds light, the way it holds time itself. Rest in that. Rest in the thought that infinity has no borders, and neither does your place within it. Infinity has no curtain call. There's no final bow, no moment when the lights snap on and someone tells the show is over. It continues even when you stop watching. It continues even when you stop asking. That is its greatest trick. It does not need your attention to persist. It simply does. Our lives, by contrast, are filled with edges. We know the edges of a table, the edges of a page, the edge of the bed where your blanket slips down in the night. These edges reassure us because they tell us where one thing stops and another begins. But in the scale of the universe, edges dissolve. The cosmos doesn't pause to draw margins. It flows without interruption, and our habit of searching for boundaries becomes almost comic against its vastness. Think again of the cosmic horizon. 46 billion light years is as far as we can see, but the universe does not pause politely at that boundary. It carries on, filled with galaxies we'll never witness. The edge of sight is not the edge of being. It's simply the limit of light's long patience. And with every year that passes, that patience stretches a little further. The event horizon of black holes whispers the same lesson. We think of it as a barrier, the point of no return, but it isn't a wall. It's a threshold where our ability to know stops, not where existence stops. The universe doesn't end at horizons. It continues. We are the ones who lose access. Even geometry refuses to hand us a fence. A closed universe loops back on itself, finite but unbounded. An open one extends endlessly. A flat one may disguise a loop, so grand we'll never detect it. None provide cliffs. None require a beyond. Space is content with being itself. And time. Time is the most patient trickster of all. We divide it into beginnings and endings. But between those markers lies infinity. Every second hides countless instants. Every blink contains an unending depth. Time has no smallest piece, no last tick. Even the end of an age does not halt it. It folds forward without border. So what of the Big Bang? We imagine it as a blast in emptiness, but it was not in space. It was space. It was not inside time. It was the birth of time. Asking what came before is like asking what lies north of the North Pole. The question doesn't fail because it's forbidden. It fails because it doesn't make sense. The beginning was not an edge. It was a transition, a new state unfolding. The future offers the same absence of cliffs. In the heat death, galaxies fade, stars extinguish, matter thins into quiet. Infinity continues, but without contrast. Now all just a hush. In the Big Rip, expansion grows wild. Galaxies scatter, planets break, atoms unravel. Yet even here, no edges appear. Infinity simply changes costume, from structured to chaotic. And in the Big Crunch, everything folds inward. Galaxies collapsing, matter compressing into density. It is not a border but a rhythm, a cycle, an ending that doubles as a beginning. 3 fates, 3 visions, none involving walls. The cosmos is too elegant to fall off cliffs. Then there is probability. Infinity guarantees that everything possible happens somewhere, however rare, however unlikely, given endless space it occurs. Somewhere impossibly far away, another Earth spins. Somewhere another version of you listens to this narration. Infinity doesn't dabble in chance. It fulfills it. This isn't cause for despair. It is cause for wonder. Your uniqueness is not diminished by repetition. It is multiplied. Infinity does not erase meaning. It saturates it. Every variation is its own truth. Every version as real as this one. You are one of infinity's expressions, woven into its pattern. Mathematics itself is complicit in this endlessness. Between any 2 numbers lie infinite more. Fractions unfold forever. Pi stretches without repeating. Infinity is not exotic. It is hidden in the chalk marks of every schoolroom, in the equations that hold airplanes aloft and guide satellites through orbit. The universe follows the same script. Infinity at the foundation, edges nowhere to be found. So tonight, as you let your thoughts drift, remember this. The cosmos has no outside. You are not at its border, balancing on a ledge. You are inside, inseparable, carried along. There's no risk of falling off, no fear of being left behind. Infinity already includes you. Let that be the lullaby, not a wall to protect you, but a wholeness that makes walls unnecessary, not an edge to confine you, but a fabric that continues forever, wrapping you inside it. You are not at the margin of reality. You are part of its endless center. And if your mind grows quiet, let it. Infinity can wait. It always does.